Hello, everyone. Thank you very much to everyone that is joining us today as we take a look into exploring the world of digital assets and custody in Dubai with a particular focus on VARA and how the regulatory environment in the UAE is contributing towards the growth of the digital assets ecosystem within the Middle East region. My name is Mohammed Durrani. I'm the Director of Business Development for Liminal in the Middle East and Africa. And I'm very excited to be here. I look forward to moderating this talk and introducing our esteemed guests now, all of whom have an immense amount of knowledge and years of experience accumulated within the crypto space here in the Middle East and beyond. So without further delay, I'd like to introduce our panelists for today. We're going to start off with Yog Shrusti. He is the co-founder and CEO of FarmStent. There we go. So Yog is joining us now. So Yog is the co-founder and CEO of FarmStent, as well as a co-founder of 4Spots digital agency based out of Manama in Bahrain. FarmStent, of course, is the world's first farmer-centric blockchain platform consisting of a decentralized network of farmers that aspire to facilitate food trade, food security globally by empowering farmers to be able to settle payments via crypto. So it's really a one-of-a-kind project, and Yog and the team have been doing a fantastic job there. So we're very happy. Thank you so much for joining us today, Yog. It's great to see you.
Thank you for having me, Mo.
Awesome. We're also joined today by my colleague, Anag Tiwari. He is our AVP of Legal and Compliance at Liminal, based out of Bangalore in India. Anag, of course, has extensive industry-wide experience within the legal and compliance space, having worked with the likes of Binance and CoinDCX in India previously. And again, so we're very happy for you to join us as well. Thanks a lot, Anag.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction, Mods. Happy to be here sharing thoughts with stalwarts of the industry like you and yourself. So looking forward to it.
Nice. It's the other way around. I'm here to just learn from you, Anna.
Definitely. We'll definitely share some thoughts for the audience and share our experiences, how it has been specifically with Vara. Looking forward to this talk.
Amazing.
Absolutely. Likewise. Yeah. Thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it very much. And we're excited to get this discussion commenced. I honestly don't think an hour would be enough time for us to really dissect the ever-evolving regulatory landscape within the truly growing digital asset space in the Middle East. But we will attempt to discuss as much valuable and relevant perspectives as we possibly can for our viewers today. So having said that, Yog, I would love to start off with you. Maybe just take us through, how have you seen the adoption of digital assets within Dubai and the broader Middle East region, just based on your experience, what you've seen happen over the last couple of years and some of the differences that you've seen now? How has the space really evolved in these last couple of years?
From project standpoint, and as well as how we are, because we are living in the Middle East, I have seen the growth in last couple of years is immense. And what I like in Middle East is that the approach, the regulatory bodies and government and people who are building have taken is very positive. Instead of dismissing the blockchain or crypto, they thought to regulate it and go in the right direction. I must add that entire Middle East region missed out almost the innovation of Web 2. We missed out Web 2 to, say, US or India, or to Germany, UK, various other countries. We missed out hardware revolution, for example, to China, Japan, or Taiwan, or the likes of them, including the US. There is a public consensus that we don't want to miss out on all the technologies, right? So I feel that there is an urgency in the way people are looking at, startups are looking at, government regulatory bodies are looking at. They are focusing on how do we be part of Web3, artificial intelligence, metaverse, and all other things, than just dismissing completely. So yeah, this is a very good space to be in right now.
Yeah, that's some excellent points. I think you bring up a really good point about how maybe there was this feeling of missing out on the Web2 aspect. And I think maybe that's why the region really has woken up to the potential of Web3 as well, right? But it's great to see the initiative coming from the top and the government really prioritizing getting in front of the industry by setting up the right kind of regulations to attract the right kind of projects and talent, right? So having said that, Anand, could you give us an overview of the Virtual Asset Regulatory Authority, which is VARA, and its role in regulating the digital assets and custody services in Dubai?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you, Anand.
Yes, Anand, please check your audio because you may be on.
I'm sorry. Am I audible right now?
Yes, you are.
So sorry for that, guys. I was saying just like the industry, which is very new. It's already a decade now. VARA is also a very young regulator. It has very recently come into being. And having said that, it is one of the most favorite regulators of businesses, if I may say, because it has its own robust processes and assessment it does. So, for example, uh, very recently we were also doing a due diligence on how to go ahead with VARA, how to establish Liminal as a custody service provider in VARA. So while we were doing that, there is one thing which very exceptional came to our mind, which is like VARA has implemented a number of investor protection measures, such as the vast needs to maintain adequate capital reserve, such as paid up capital, which is logged for the business at times, right? For example, Liminal has an in-principle approval in ADGM. Our paid up capital there is around 1.3 million USD, which can be used by us. What VARA, on the other way around, the capital is a bit less. It's around 160, 170K USD for specifically for custody, but it has to be logged at all times so that you maintain that capital reserves, which acts as a precursor for your investor protection, which is something very good when an investor sees or a business sees, because it's like 5-7 times lesser than other jurisdictions for businesses, and investors already have a comfort to fall behind, right? VARA also has established very specific requirements for VAS that provide custody services, such as requiring them to safeguard customers' assets from their own assets, right? So to implement these measures, there's always a liability which rests on this specific service provider if anything goes wrong. You need to segregate your assets with the assets of your customers. After you've segregated your assets, you need to provide statements to your customers, and once they have all the statements of their funds, you need to do the VARA does a periodic check or an audit on you. So that is something which actually is good for an investor and good for business as well who wants to comply. Though it has very robust AML and CFT measures, ironically, UAE itself is in a FATF grey list as of now. But I think employing these measures will take Dubai UAE as a jurisdiction ahead, because if you show good practices to the global organization, global world, then it's just a matter of time that you come out of FATF grey list and you move ahead, right? So definitely robust measures such as AM and CTF measures are there. So overall, from a brief point of view, I think VARA is one regulator currently all over the globe, which is preferred by most of the crypto businesses. That is why our preference as well.
Yes,
Absolutely.
I completely agree. And I think this is where To your point, Anag, and I'm sure you'll would agree with this as well. I think part of this is creating a perception of the importance of creating a stable environment for all the stakeholders that are involved in the industry and that want to become involved in the industry here in Dubai. I think to be able to lay the foundation for stable growth within a specific industry, you need to be able to create an atmosphere of stability, right? And so the compliance and the regulations, having robust regulations to be able to achieve that, I think goes a long way in sort of giving people some level of comfort, giving all the stakeholders a level of comfort in wanting to come here and establishing their projects here, right? And so
I think
yes,
I also I agree, and I just want to add to what Mo you're saying. Basically, is like, the job of regulator is not only the investor protection or global compliance and things like that. That would have gone to any law enforcement agency. Why it has gone to a regulator, right? So it cannot be series of monologues. It need to have some dialogue somewhere, right? And Vara has probably sensed that, right? And for me, when I look at any regulator, I look at what is their objective behind not preventing innovation. And I'm carefully selecting this word, preventing innovation, because you cannot sit on a 1930s law, not referring to any country for obvious reasons. You cannot sit in a 1930s law and make a regulatory activity based on the modern way that digital finance functions, right? Or a new technology functions, right? You can't also be too preempting about it. So I think you cannot prevent innovation and you cannot preempt so many things, right? And I think Bara's approach is very commendable, and no wonder why they are being one of the favorite regulators, because as a project point of view, they have had a lot of dialogues with us, which is heartening to see. And as a young startup and company which is trying to do something very different, uh, right at FarmCent, and you all guys know that it is very weird. There is no benchmark to look at, right? You want a regulator to assure you constantly that you are good, you are good with this, right? So yeah, yeah. Go ahead with other things, but I just thought to come in and say this.
for sure. No, thank you so much. That's a very good point, Yog. And guys, I just want to take a minute to also introduce uh, Prasoon Agarwal. He just joined us. Prasoon is a partner at Mysteria Capital and Capital Leap Ventures, primarily focused on investing in the crypto and online gaming space. He's got extensive experience, over 13 years of experience, just building and investing in multiple successful startups across India, Singapore, and the Middle East. He is based out of Dubai, so we're very happy to have him on and have him contribute with some of his experience and perspectives on the region as well. Prasoon, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you guys for having me here.
Fantastic. Yeah, so we'll. So I want to, Yo, just very quickly, I want to sort of piggyback off of what you were just talking about, and Prasoon, maybe I can ask you this, but what are some of the sort of the key achievements so far, or in terms of objectives, initiatives, or milestones that Vara has achieved when it comes to fostering a secure, or at least laying the groundwork for fostering a thriving digital asset ecosystem in Dubai, number one. And number two, how do you think this particular regulatory framework compares to other global financial hubs that you look at right now around the world, right? If you can just highlight, some of the advantages right now in terms of what we see happening here in Dubai compared to what's happening in other parts of the world.
That's to me or to Prasoon?
Prasoon, if you can jump in on that
Prasoon,
one.
yeah, we'd love to hear you, Prasoon. Go ahead.
I think the first thing always is to get started. There is hardly handful of countries which have started thinking about digital assets and setting up a regulatory body. And the best part about Dubai is UAE is that it's not just the regulatory body specific to digital currency. There are other favorable things for people to move in here and do business, which is low tax, which is freedom of cash movement, stuff like that. But looking at Vara itself, I think it's evolving constantly. I remember from the time when the first four or five applications have filed. They were complaining that they had to go ahead and work with 200 odd different documents and still took multiple months. Even now, the road ahead is rocky. It's not easy to get a VARA license, and I think Liminal is can agree to that. But the interesting point here is that they're not looking at just setting up a regulatory body, but there are many more things happening uh, underground, which would eventually come out. Things like wherein imagine if you somehow get the same confidence when you put your money, especially when it comes to custody in a bank. Although nothing is 100% secure, even banks have limitations. But the kind of security and belief and trust it gives to general public, I think that's the foundation which countries need to lay down when it comes to digital currencies. And I think UAE is doing a lot of stuff on that underground with behind the tables. Uh, but soon it'll come out wherein if you are able to have two or three cherry picked custody solutions, maybe Liminal is one of them, and then maybe few other existing big organizations, whether it's like something like a bank or someone who deals with existing with high valued commodities like gold and silver, someone like them coming up with the support of the government, and you are able to put in your small amount of cash as a retail or a big amount of cash as a big corporate or an individual or an HNI. That is the time when we would see a lot of influx, not only from individuals coming down from different countries, but also corporates having their satellite offices and governments having their satellite offices here just to enjoy the benefit and the confidence and the trust they have in the system. Because any economy in the world, I mean, the whole equation of economy in the world works on trust. All your dollars or rupees is nothing but a representation of all your hard work and all your ancestral hard work stored in a value. You keep that in dollar or rupee because you trust that tomorrow I'll buy my next house or car or get my child's marriage done with that money. That's my support. And that trust needs to be built in digital currencies as well. Whenever you look at any big corporate or anyone who's even there in crypto, majority of them are a small fraction in crypto, whether it comes to stable coins or whether it is any other promising digital currency. It's primarily about looking at a trading commodity, but they're not looking it as a real store of value. But if you look at people who believe in Bitcoin specifically, very, very specifically Bitcoin, and they believe in the whole decentralized narrative, they are holding a lot of their wealth in Bitcoin. And we want the same thing to happen with other digital currencies. And that would eventually happen only and only when they see someone who's like a government or a big enough body to say that, okay, hey, if you don't understand decentralized, if you don't understand stuff like self custody of wallets, here we have custodial solution which will back you up, and you can still enjoy the same benefits which other tech people are able to do so. So I think that's what is important for me, and that's what is working, and that's what is happening in UAE. That's very interesting.
Definitely, definitely. Yes. Yeah. Some great points there. Thanks a lot, Prasoon. Anag, Yo, did you guys have anything you wanted to add to some of Prasoon's points?
I have a very interesting theory for what prompted Vara to go in that direction, right? But one of the things which we have to really appreciate Vara is the first one to do so, right? It hasn't banked on any of the existing laws and regulation. It decided to go with a complete different set of law, you know.
Yeah.
And looking at the dynamics, it feels as if they are looking at or learning from typical Web 2 or general organization structure rather than looking at an individual asset. They're looking at companies and organizations and kind of regulate them, right? Which is very good because that is a common investor. At the end of the day, you're protecting a common investor, right? Or their assets, right? If they cannot understand what you are protecting, if they cannot understand what are the dynamics, right, then the entire system fails, right? So this is heartening to see that Vara is taking that approach. Second thing, whenever you are creating a template, and I would still say a template for the world, right? Because there is no benchmark. The approach Vara has taken, yes, it is speaking to other regulatory bodies and understanding their perspective. But it is going all alone to do that template without much benchmark. Okay, there are scattered few nations here and there, but such a global and committed scale, there aren't many, right? So that's always going to be a challenge, but then there is benefits as well. So I would just conclude that.
It's a very interesting yes. Where you are a pioneer in a space, uh, there's always the risk because, just like you mentioned, you're really the first one to lay the groundworks. So there is a lot of trial and error in a situation like that, right? And I think maybe Vara may have gone through some of those hiccups, but I think it's definitely evolving and it seems to be improving over time, right? So on that note, though, Anag, can you explain to us a little bit more from a regulatory perspective, the importance of the custody services in the digital asset space and how VAR is aiming to capitalize on that by ensuring security and compliance for the investors that want to invest in this space?
Correct. I think that resonates from what Prasoon and Yog answered, that there needs to be essentially few parties involved with the regulator, with the government, to take few things ahead. For example, if you consider India, India has two depositories which controls your entire security system, right? Your CDSL, your NDSL. Similarly, as we go ahead and as regulations come into play, there will be few custodians who will be holding your virtual digital assets. There will be a few exchanges who will be recognized, who will be regulated, and whoever by the book, whoever will be the regulator's favorite, whoever will comply with the laws, they will win this race.
Right.
So we would have seen from examples in this bear market that the people who are actually not uh, adhering to the principles and laws and regulations which are currently very basic in nature. For example, FATF, they cease to exist because people who are genuine, they don't do business with them, right? Like, even if you ask investors such as Prasoon, they won't invest in these entities. They will show your trust if you have rightly regulated system or structure in place or corporate governance in place. So when you look at VARA, there is a rule book for everything, right? There are rule books which categorize and gives you answers for each and everything. Similarly, uh, what is applicable to custody such as liminal is quite simple. As I said, you need to segregate assets. Most of your assets should be in cold wallets, right? So the services we provide to exchanges right now, we give them an option, the SaaS solution which we provide. Maximum assets, the virtual digital assets, are stored in cold wallets. Third thing, the key residency. The residency of assets is a very big problem when it comes to uh, virtual digital assets, because you can't say that I hold a Bitcoin in my purse right now. The key residency has to be in a server in that jurisdiction. So when you speak to governments like India, Dubai, and other governments, they are very concerned about the assets which are managed by exchanges, by custodians, and whether the investors will be protected by these assets in specific jurisdictions. If I take out an asset from a specific jurisdiction, then the recovery of that asset is very difficult for me. So, if an asset is managed by a custodian within that jurisdiction with key residency such as liminal, then the regulator, the government, the investors will prefer you, right? Because you are in the right mindset of providing these services. So, very similarly with custody, we have the same principles going on with ADGM right now, wherein we got our in principle approval, wherein we have a right risk management framework, right custody principles, grievance redressals, your key residencies. So this is something I personally feel is rewarding when you see, because not all jurisdictions are thinking about custody as of now. It's only VARA and few others. If you see, major jurisdictions are focusing on exchanges and other parts of blockchain, which is essential. But when it comes to assets, the assets should sit on a specific entity which is regulated. For example, very important thing. When you get a custody license or when you apply for a custody license, specifically in Indonesia, you need to have a separate entity which should be definitely not a related party to an exchange, right? It can be an associated entity, but should be the mechanism should be different. The learnings we are getting out of all of these regulations and examples are the failures of the past, right? We have seen failures of FTX, we have seen a few failures of other exchanges, wherein a, a single man show cannot run everything, right? There needs to be a structure to everything, and the regulation should be the core of structure. The people will definitely throw stone at me and say, no, it's decentralized. Regulation doesn't play a game. But certain protections need to be regulated. That is what I believe. Protections like AML are still there in our normal banking scenarios. You can bank from India to US, India to UAE, anywhere. It's just that what we are trying to solve as a problem, there needs to be a protection around it. That is where investors and the governments are comfortable. And probably Prasoon or Yog would have an opinion on the same lines that investors such as Prasoon and founders such as Yog would be comfortable to work in a regulated environment wherein the investors believe in. That is my 2 cents.
I absolutely agree with the points Anak has made. End of the day, a project like us, what we are trying to do is making sure that our ecosystem is protected, right? And when we talk about an ecosystem, I believe the role of specialists. And when I was having dialogue with Mo about liminal services, the first thing I told him is that why liminal? Because that's not my specialization to store. I'm not a custody.
Yes.
I have other work to do, right? So it's not only a peace of mind for the founders, it is a good corporate governance as well. And I think Prashant can endorse these things. And it is also peace of mind for my investors and my ecosystem partners that the right people are handling the right sections and the cause of the organization, you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So on that note, uh, Prasoon, I'd like to ask you this one. How do you feel Dubai's approach to regulating the digital asset space and for digital asset custody alignment? How does it sort of align with the broader vision of trying to make the UAE sort of a hub for global fintech and blockchain companies, right? Um, do you see some alignment in that thought process where, Dubai and the UAE are trying to become a hub for global fintech companies and the blockchain space in general? And then the approach that Dubai is taking with the digital asset custody regulations through VAR. Do you see some alignments there from your perspective?
Absolutely. I think the way UAE is moving forward, especially when you see a lot of marketing, in the sense people around the world are saying that UAE is friendly, there has been a marketing effort done behind that, right? And it's not just one end what they're looking at. They're looking at all round solution, whether it is marketing and bringing in more people, whether it is setting up a regulatory body to make sure that everything is moving in line and they're able to track and knock down bad actors, but also setting up things, processes like custody. And one of the good example could be having a centralized depository system that says very strong statement that if you want to do business in UAE with any one of the corporates or any one of the individuals, you need to bloody make sure that you abide by that, and you have these 3 or 4 central depository systems, and one of them could be Liminal, wherein even they are regulated in a way, the way you have to store the data, the way you have to store the keys, the way you have to manage the assets, the way you have to move the assets, everything has been defined. And whether you choose Liminal or other of the 3 or 4 partners, all of them act as the same. And then having a central kind of view system wherein anybody, does not matter whether your custody is on Liminal or anywhere else, you go to that central website of the government which is reliable and trustable, and put that hash or whatever that information you have, which can show you the whole transaction and where it is residing with what encryption and all the other details. So that gives the confidence all the way from retail to upwards to corporates and to the government bodies, and also other third parties coming from different countries and setting up businesses and keeping their assets in UAE, which can also tomorrow become a point wherein if you have won that race, you may not be doing business in UAE, but you still have decent amount of assets stored in UAE, although it says that it's a decentralized asset, but still being in a central regulatory body, which may not have control over your assets, but have control on how these assets are saved, moved, and
Correct.
regulated. I think that's what could make UAE move ahead the race. And in that process, if someone is able to move hand in hand with the government, and not only in following them what they're doing, but also correcting them and helping them building the right things, because frankly nobody has got the right answer right now that what is the best possible way to go forward. Even if you look at stock markets, money markets, capital markets, all three of them have taken 50 to 70 years to get fully regulated in any big market, whether it is India, US, uh, UK, wherever, everywhere it has taken several years to set up the right set of regulation, because these are things wherein there are more no's than yes, because the fear of unknown is much bigger and people can't take chances with that, right? And hence,
Yeah, Prasoon, that's a very good point. By the way, that just makes me realize. A couple of days ago, I was reading something similar along those lines about how, on a side note, the stock market in the U.S. only really started to see robust regulations come in around the time of the Great Depression in the 1930s, right? So the industry from that point onwards took another, a good 50, 60, 70 years to really evolve and strengthen on the foundations of those regulations, right? So that's a very good point. Some of these things I think take time, but to what we've been discussing so far, and to Yo's point as well about how it's important to at least get the process started and lay the groundwork, and then see it evolve, and through trial and error keep improving on it as time goes by and as the ecosystem naturally grows as well, right?
And taking on from that momentum from Prasoon, I would like to add one more thing. Prasoon, we have seen this same thing in one of our jurisdictions. So we provide white label tech to Tenet in Indonesia. Tenet is the only regulated entity in Indonesia. An Indonesian regulator, BAPTI, has made compulsory for all exchanges and corporates to register with Tenet, which is the only regulated custodian there. So bringing in line the same thing, that you need to have certain right players in the market. There can be 4 Tenet possible, 4 Liminal possible, 5 Liminal possible, but you need to go in the right direction, make right with the regulator, and then the market grows along with it. And similarly, that happened with our uh, our securities market everywhere in the world. It took time, but there are right players right now as well who are protecting each and everyone's rights. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I've seen this in one of the other jurisdictions.
well, I think absolutely correct. In fact, if you look at broader markets, stock markets, everywhere there is a central depository system. In India, we have NSDL and CDSL, but the good part is that they act exactly like a replica of each other. They are entirely two different entities. Just because there is a governance from the government side that how it has to be made and regulated and built, there can be 20 different companies, but they all active and behaving in the same way, so that the end investor, whether it is a retail or a big corporate, has a seamless experience, and also the trust that this whole process and system is made by the government, and it is in the favor of the investors to bring in and boost in more investors in the system. And I think that's a
Exactly.
good step which Indonesia has taken. Maybe we start with one company and then learn from that, and then create a central depository system which is powered by 10 different companies.
Makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. And to add to that, Yoga, I think you had some experience working with the Indonesian regulators at this point, right? And I know we've had that discussion before as well. But to Anag's point, though, I think it's interesting, and I know Prasoon touched on this as well. It's interesting, the idea that as a company that is maybe looking to provide custody solutions, such as we are here at Liminal, you kind of want to be ahead of the rest of the pack, in the sense that you want to be able to be a part of the laying of the groundwork from a regulatory perspective, because there may come a time when, just like what Prasoon was alluding to, there might only really be 2 or 3 select entities that might have, that might be given the green light to go ahead and offer custody solutions within a specific marketplace. And I think it's important to be ahead of the curve when it comes to that, to be able to anticipate that and see that, and grasp that opportunity as well, right, as the market grows and evolves. So it'll be interesting to see, how things go from here. But on that note, and Yog, I'll ask you this first: what advice do you have for investors and businesses that are looking to enter the digital assets market within the Middle East in general, and specifically, say, in Dubai, for example, particularly in terms of compliance and security? What would be an advice that you would give to some founders who are looking to move to this part of the world now, based on the favorable conditions for the market?
Yeah, I will first touch down on what is my experience in Indonesia a bit, right? The more dialogue I had with the leadership over there, and the more we are convinced that yes, you have a set of rule or a direction, but do not close any other possibilities, because it's a changing environment, right? So my constant push was to them that while you are saying that this is bit centralized, one entity can play the role, keep opening the sandboxes and make other player come with innovative solutions, and then see based on parameters and your objective whether you are in a position to advise them certain things and make them compliant. What is the end goal? Investor protection and compliance, right? Right. This is the two end goals, right? So if you don't want to kill innovation, don't put too much of hard rules on this, right? And I think with the I'm in touch with a couple of next set of leaders as well, right? And I think that this is going in the right direction. They both agree that yeah, this is the way it should go. That this is just a starting point, as Prasan was saying, that this is just a starting point, and from there you extend and do other things. Coming back to Dubai, the experience has been great, and if anyone has a rosy picture that you will be getting a license within a few days, please don't have that, right? Because it's not possible. It's not possible for a regulator which is still having, if I say so, that feet on ground, right? To look at a lot of combinations of factors, and so this is going to be the case. But the other side of it, the more founders I'm speaking to, I think Prasan and Prasan especially can endorse that most of the founders want to be regulated,
Correct.
right? Because they want investors' confidence flowing into their project, right? So they will flock into Dubai, have a dialogue with Vara, and ensure that they follow. They don't want to miss out on the larger aspect, perspective, right? So some of the key developments are also not too far. And uh, let's talk about India, for example, right? Prime Minister Modi, few days back in G20 summit, highlighted that cryptocurrency, there is a need for a global regulation, right?
Correct.
And a coinciding factor that UAE is part of G20 now, so as African Union, congrats to both of them. So UAE should, if I'm working in Vora, I would be jumping in joy, because this is literally connecting dots, right? At one point of time, I have some ambition so that the global investment comes to Dubai. The second, in the other side, there is G20. These nations are making me part of their group, right? So, am I in a better position to preempt what this industry is trying to do because I have got a heads up of, for example, 2 or 3 years? Can I create a template going forward? Right. So that is why I would urge the founders to take a serious look at Dubai, because they are in right position. And also the FATF grey list is a bit off-putting, but as Anag was saying, that this is not necessarily a bad thing. That means more stringent process will come into play, and that will create
Correct.
an efficient mechanism. So that's my 2 cents.
Absolutely, yeah, some very good points there. Did you want to add anything for investors and businesses looking to enter the digital asset market space in the UAE in terms of compliance and security? What do you advise them? And I know you work with a lot of startups, right? So what do you normally advise a lot of these projects that are looking to come to Dubai?
Questions to you?
Yes.
There's a lot of noise from someone's end. I don't know. Maybe others can mute.
There's a little bit of, yes, there's some background noise. That's right.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyways, so I think this is the first time in the world all of us have witnessed true ownership of something, right? Something which is valuable, whether it is asset of a company which is important for a founder, or whether it is individual who's holding his store of value in it in the form of digital currency. Because in the previous world, everything was managed by the governments or someone, whether it is the gold or the real estate or the cash. You cannot technically move out of a particular jurisdiction if the government does not wants to. And that is a downside, but the upside is that if something goes wrong, you have someone to blame with, right? Okay. And then you also have someone to go and reach out to get it fixed. Okay, I forgot my password, I forgot this, I forgot that, right? I couldn't do this, or someone stole my money, can you get it back? All of that can be done. But in decentralized systems, that's not the case. Very recently, about a week back, a friend of mine lost $11 million. And that's a huge amount of money, I would say. And that's not his own money alone. There are other people involved as well. Now, what we don't realize is that we don't know the repercussions of losing something which is irreversible. We, no matter what, as humans, take a lot of time to understand that if it's gone, it's gone. It cannot come back. And that is one big fear which large corporates understand, and that's one of the biggest reason why they're not entering so soon, because they know that there are some things which they cannot handle, and they need a government support in that. So there could be a two-party solution wherein you have large amounts of monies with the government regulation, under the regulation, and some part of it, okay, you don't want it to be regulated. It's there with you in the decentralized world wherever you want to keep it. But for mass adoption, for mass recognition, and for mass to be able to transact with it, all three of that does require regulation and does require some custody. And that's where people will take time, maybe 50 years or 100 years, to truly understand what it takes to truly own the asset and keep it with you like a legacy. Because uh, it's not something which is a physical gold you can bury in your house, under your house, for 10 generations, right? It might not work in the same fashion here, because you might have that ledger buried but you might not remember the password, right? And still useless. So it's a very new concept, and I think it's very important somebody to be the big guy and holding your hand, taking you through that journey. And maybe through in the mid of that journey or somewhere, you'll realize that, okay, now it's the next generation, 17-year-old or 20-year-old, which can start putting up their own small set of assets or company or whatever in 100% regulated environment, where it is multi-signed or single signed, doesn't matter. But it cannot happen overnight. If it happens overnight, a lot of people will lose money, and we already see that. And a lot of people then stamp it as a scam or something as unreliable. But the matter of fact is, it's reliable It's just that we don't know how to handle it. Anyone who got hacked because he kept his keys in the email or laptop, or he clicked that wrong URL. It was not the technology what was wrong. And that's why custody is very, very important, because the checks and balances would be strict. It will be followed under the SOP, not on a casual day wherein if you were drunk on a night, you wanted to transfer $100 to somebody, you transferred and you did not focus on what are the security measures to be taken, and you compromise your whole laptop or your whole ledger, which was having many other assets. So that's what's one of the biggest problem. And people are soon realizing that a lot of people who grew from nowhere to 50 million, 10 million, 100 million, whatever, a significant amount of money, and then lost all of it overnight without even knowing that it is gone, only to realize a week later that it's gone already. I think that's where it's very, very important. And that's what we have to look from the founder's perspective, from the government's perspective, and also from the individual's perspective. So the only advice I would give to founders is that they don't get so many silver bullets to take. If you are setting up a business, there is a lot of things gone in your hard work, investors hard earned money, and investors don't have all their money of their own. It's several other people who are involved, and so many other people who are dependent on the job, uh, which you are providing them by giving an enterprise, right? So all that responsibility is there on the shoulders of the founder, and he's not capable of today taking care of all the custody. No individual is capable of taking care of the custody. Only a certain set of processes which is constantly monitored and have certain set of rules, that works. And the good example of that is banking system. You can't just withdraw money left, right, center in a banking system. There are flags for everything. There are checks and balances and controls for every fucking thing you do in the banking system. And that's what makes it robust and strong and trustable. And that's what is required at this end as well. Now, come same thing happens to the corporates, whether they're having their part of balance sheet with digital assets, or an individual who have made a lot of wealth or don't have wealth or whatever they have. It's important for them, and it's very important for them to understand why the custody is important. What proportion of custody is important, that's their own decision. Because once they understand that how much risk is involved in owning and keeping it with yourself, I'm sure many will opt for moving to the custody as well. Just the way we diversify our assets, it's also important kind of way to diversify your assets with custody and with self custody. If you really think that self custody is the way, start small, be with self custody. Once you are able to see and learn with smaller mistakes so that you don't make costly mistakes, that is when you keep on moving your assets from custody to self custody.
Absolutely. Yeah. Prasoon, I think you touched on some great points there. Just to quickly add, even from sort of what I've noticed, I think there is a lot of idealism and romanticism behind the idea of, decentralization and freedom and independence when it comes to the blockchain space. But I think at the end of the day, you hit the nail on the head when you said, if we really want mass adoption and a truly practical utility for blockchain, right? And for it to really achieve its mass potential, there will absolutely need to be some form of stringent regulations in place to be able to really sort of keep the trajectory of the industry towards the next stage. And so yeah, thank you so much for that. And I think we are getting close to the end of our discussion here. I will throw one final question out there for all three of you. Please feel free to chime in. Anag, you may start with this one, but what is the long-term vision for Vara at this point, and how do you see it shaping the future of the digital assets regulatory space in Dubai and in the region going forward?
So I want to answer that in some time. I want to touch what Prasoon said, because that is something very right and very sentimental to everyone in the industry. Because if you see the banking space, you feel that trust, right? That nothing can go wrong. Nothing can go wrong because there are inbuilt processes. And similarly, custodians who are currently doing same kind of activities. For example, Liminal, who has their in-house investigation, wherein each and every transaction is investigated on where it is going. There is a tribal rule implementation on who is doing it, right? You have your security processes, such as your CCSS, SOC 2 certifications, which are the world's best certifications. So that gives the confidence to not only a retail investor, also a corporate, that you need a specific set of processes, just like old finance. It's just that the new finance we are entering in is fast. That's all. From a regulator's perspective, for example, VARA, what it needs to do is pretty straightforward and pretty simple. See, you need to have a visionary leadership. The Dubai government has a very clear vision for the future of the emirate as a global hub for innovation and technology, as Yog said. And crypto and digital assets are seen as the key components of this vision. Secondly, they have made it favorable, right? Like all three of you, you are in Dubai, right? So why are you guys there? Why is the world there? So a favorable business environment. Dubai offers a number of advantages to businesses operating in the space. For example, low tax environment, world-class infrastructure, and a supportive regulatory framework which is forward-looking. Then, thirdly, I would say is commitment to innovation. The Dubai government is committed to supporting innovation in all sectors, not only in crypto and digital asset industries, but this commitment is towards all. You would have seen Dubai Metaverse Strategy, Dubai Future District. So the commitment shows in the government's nature itself and the global outlook. The way Dubai and others look into nations such as India, and all of them together are going ahead. For example, the FSB synthesis, IMF FSB synthesis paper, which has come up under India's leadership in G20, which says that crypto regulations should come into place, and there's a strong focus on international regulations which should come into place. So these are the few things I think the global crypto audience should understand, and together should build something which is fail safe, or which is a foolproof. For example, if you when I was investigating a few crimes, I was dealing with enforcement agencies in India, specifically NIA on terrorist financing matters, ED on money laundering matters. I have seen lot of hue and cry over when something goes wrong. And why these processes are important? Because the impact is huge. The whole nation is targeted. So I actually remember an example. I was uh, tracking a transaction which came from one party to another party in India. Because of that Bitcoin transaction, a bombing took place in one of the cities in India. That bombing did not lead to any casualties, but still it was a terrorist financing issue. And I closely worked with NIA. So the monitoring mechanisms to non-state actors which do not follow laws and talk talk about the idealism of having everything decentralized will surely not work in future, because people believe in having the right future in place, right securities, right compliances in place. And I personally would like to end on a note that Dubai is at the forefront of it, and VARA is certainly a regulator who specializes in these regulatory frameworks. While we are also preparing Liminal, as a Liminal, we are preparing our applications to work with VARA. They are definitely a hard nut to crack, but they are definitely the ones you should go after. So, uh, thank you for.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot for that, Anag. Yog, did you want to chime in on that last point?
Beautiful. I was actually taking it all in, what Anna was saying. It's absolutely very important to look at all the different aspects, right? But just to go beyond, like it's a changing environment, right? What is going to happen in future is that more companies are flocking into Dubai, right? Will Vara be having the same threshold? because these are verified by humans, and there is a threshold to this, right? I'm sensing that Vara at some point of time would pass on a bit of a responsibility to probably a self-regulated organization. SROs can actually take a little bit of, you know, off from the shoulder of Vara, right? Industry leaders also need to create at least dialogue places, right? Which gives these opinions to Vara or any other regulators to see this is what we think, right? So instead of only making a system which is reactive, we should think about making a system more proactive, right? I'm sure there are a lot of contribution can come from the industry because industry leaders want blockchain and cryptocurrency and entire Web3 setup to be clean and not filled with criminals, right? And with the act of few criminals, when you are entirely labeled as a industry which is financing terror or financing crimes, that doesn't really suit the narrative we want to establish. For example, at FarmCent, I'm trying to create farmer-centric blockchain. And when we talk about countries like Indonesia, which has got 38.8 million farmers, right? We're talking about addressing such a market where if we can pay some favorable earning capacity to these farmers, they will ensure our food security. And we found that blockchain is going to be the only one technology which can only provide transparency, right? So
Right.
in one side, while we are looking at like the terror and crime, and another side we are looking at a complete different proposition of in the human and social side of things. Regulators need to balance so many things. They don't want to scare away project like farms, and at the same time they don't want to leave any room open for these criminals, right? So I think it is up to industry leaders and key opinion leaders to come and also create bodies which aid regulatory bodies like FORA, instead of just leaving them in the deep pool and saying, okay, you regulate and we are watching, you know. So I think SROs are going to be key elements in this, and I'm sure that leadership in VARA are thinking in that direction.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Prasoon, did you want to jump in with some last thoughts, last comments?
Thoughts are generally about the road ahead. I think the road ahead for Vara is to remove the fear of unknown, fear of unknown in terms of history, the fear of unknown in terms of Vara itself. And I think you said in a bit that Saru should be there. There are so many ways which will come up if more differentiations happen and ideas being brainstormed on how to go about it. Because if they really want the whole world to come in and they want to cover basic lands, they have to have more capacity and reduce the fear of unknown that okay, it's difficult, it's 200 pages or whatever. A lot of that can be automated, a lot of that can be on a smart self-service tech-based web application wherein it can be guiding the founders or doers who are setting up the new businesses here. And only the last part could be checked out. And since we are all in decentralized world, why not setting up a system wherein part of it could be managed by the decentralized world and they could be incentivized for that. And the best part about that is not only uh, getting the job done, but when it's decentralized, even the person who's setting it up is more aware. And at the same time, when there are 200 more eyes looking at it, there are definitely going to be more checks and bounces. There'll be more viewpoints on it, and it will become much more stronger with the time. So I think those are my 2 cents on moving ahead and bringing and making Vara the strongest, the best, and making the utilization on the best of the technology available, including the uh, decentralized world or AI as well if they want to, because a lot of things in that direction is happening with the government, especially in Middle East. Like we have worked with Dubai Police, Saudi Municipal Corporation, and few others, wherein they are working on the forefront of AI and decentralization as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's some great parting thoughts and some food for thought for all of us going forward. But gentlemen, thank you so much. This has been an excellent, excellent discussion. We truly appreciate you all taking the time to join us today, and with such valuable contributions as well. I'm sure our viewers are very thankful too. So on that note, I think we will wrap it up. So once again, thank you so much, Yog, Prasoon, Anag. Thank you very much. This has been a pleasure, and we'll see you around.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Anag and Prasun, for such a wonderful thing. Lot to learn. I'll ping you guys later.
Please do connect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
guys.
for joining, all of you. Thank you so much.
Take care. All the best. Thank you. Take care.